A lot of criticism and pushback to the idea that President Trump has not been clear about what the objectives are. You said just now that the Iranians are obviously getting help. What is obvious about what Donald Trump is doing? Because I feel like it's
killing the supreme
unclear.
leader for one point, but.
Whenever there are issues of war and peace, emotions run high through all elected representatives. That is obvious.
The Canadian position has been unprincipled, it's been contradictory, and it's been incoherent.
The Prime Minister has taken 4 different positions on the war in the Middle East in 4 days. All they are doing is trying to pander in all directions while dividing our country.
In 90 minutes, MPs will square off in the House of Commons to debate Canada's approach to the war in Iran. It's been 10 days since the U.S. and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran, a conflict which has since spread across much of the Middle East. There's no end in sight, it appears, to the war, with Iran just naming a new ruler, the son of the country's slain supreme leader. All of this uncertainty has fueled massive volatility in oil prices, the likes of which we have not seen since 2022. We're standing by to hear the latest comments from U.S. President Donald Trump, who is expected to hold a press conference in about 30 minutes. Here in Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney initially backed the strikes on Iran in order to block that country from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Days later, he said he arrived at that position with regret, since the U.S. and Israel had not launched the strikes in consultation with allies. Further evidence, he said, of the failure of the international order. We requested interviews with both the Liberals and Conservatives ahead of the debate. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand's office declined our request. With me live in studio right now is the Conservatives Deputy Leader, Melissa Lantsman. Hi, Ms. Lantsman. Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start off. I understand the criticism that your party has levied toward the Prime Minister and his stance on Iran and what's happening there, but I wanted to better understand your party's position. The leader of your party, Pierre Poilievre, said today, we support the action to overturn the regime because this is a regime that has killed Canadians. Do you believe that that is the objective of what the United States is doing?
Well, I don't want to speak for the United States and their objectives. I think they can make that clear. Whether the president makes that clear at 5:30, we can't control the president. The objective of regime change in Iran is something that Conservatives support, and continue to support. We've had one position throughout all of this, and not 4 in 4 days, and that is because this regime killed 55 Canadians, 30 permanent residents. Their regime agents who currently live amongst us in Canada, 700 that we know of from our own security apparatus, and to my understanding, only 1 that has been removed. We asked the minister about that today. He certainly couldn't tell us that more have been removed, but we can control what we can control at home, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about tonight.
And I do understand that point. I think, though, on your point that, you can't control what Donald Trump says or does, I take that as well. But should that not also inform your position on what is actually happening? There is one position to be had on the regime, and you're absolutely right to talk about the Canadians they've killed, the Iranians that have been killed, that have been massacred, that have been punished.
The sponsorship of terror.
1,000%. But with the lack of clarity from the Trump administration, does that not have to also inform your position on what is actually happening, not just the regime?
Look, I think that we are, I think, on the precipice of change in Iran, and I've stood with this community for many, many years before I was elected, many years as an elected politician. I stood there with Liberal MPs on the stage asking for exactly this, a change of regime in Iran by the people of Iran. They've obviously got some help now for a better future, a future after 47 years of being subjugated to mass murder, mass imprisonment. Those long arms of the regime again, are in our own communities, where I'm an MP with a sizable Iranian population. I have people call my office. I have calls with them. They're in a car with a blurred out background far away from their house because they are terrified of the activists that we have living on our soil. They've made Canada a safe haven for their activities, and that's why we should be happy about this.
But are you sure there is something to be happy about? I understand all the points you just laid out. Your criticism, your party's criticism of the federal government, though, has been around the Prime Minister, for example, talking about how there wasn't consultation, or how the strikes without that consultation could have contravened, just wait a second, could have contravened the international law, or how he eventually said this isn't a blank check because of a lot of criticism and pushback to the idea that President Trump has not been clear about what the objectives are. You said just now that the Iranians are obviously getting help. What is obvious about what Donald Trump is doing? Because I feel like it's
killing the supreme leader for one point, but
who is now replaced by his son.
Just a reminder, gang, smash the like, hit subscribe. We work really hard at this stuff. Let's get back to the video.
Been critical of the Prime Minister's position because he hasn't had a single position. He started again with we support the airstrikes, then it was we regret that support, then it's in contravention of international law, and then it was what we might join it. And the Prime Minister hasn't made clear to Canadians, and he hasn't made clear certainly to the House of Commons, and he won't be there at the debate tonight to make his position clear. And from question period today, we had the Foreign Minister, who's not interviewing on your show, get up and give an additional 2 positions that are saying different things to different people. That confuses Canadians within the Iranian diaspora, it confuses Canadians right across the country, and it confuses our allies about the position that we hold as Canadians.
I agree the position is confusing. I wish I could ask the government about it. I have raised it multiple times on this show. My question to you, though, with great respect, Ms. Lantsman, is your party's position. You have a position on the regime. Do you have a position on the actions launched by the U.S. in Israel?
We supported those actions in order to have regime change.
But the regime change hasn't occurred.
The regime change hasn't occurred, and we supported those actions in light of a potential regime change. And we want to see a regime change. We want to see a regime replaced by an elected, an elected government chosen by the Iranian people for a future in Iran that is free of murder, of locking up dissidents, of locking up journalists, of throwing gay people off of roofs, of protecting women's rights, all of the things that Liberal MPs and MPs from multiple parties have gotten up in the House and advocated for every step of the way.
But Donald Trump hasn't. And that's why I ask about your party's position about his actions, right? Because he is not standing up there saying all the very correct things that you just did about the regime and about the validity of overturning the regime. He has changed his message at least 4 times to my count on what the objectives are, about where things are at, about how far he's prepared to go.
I don't know how
That's why I asked.
Yeah, I don't know how many more times to tell you that our position, again, is support of this, support regime change. We're going to stand with the Iranian people, both in the diaspora here and the millions around the world that have been in the streets demanding this. We've had that position from the beginning. We'll have that position tonight, and we'll have that position tomorrow.
But just because you keep saying it doesn't mean it acknowledges the reality of the fact that this isn't just about the regime. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying about the regime. I understand the clarity of your position on the regime, but should there not be some nuance, and is it not tolerable that there be some nuance to other parties' positions or the government's position, given it's Donald Trump leading the charge and he has offered no clarity on his own objectives?
Yeah, look, I don't think that the thing that you're looking for is nuance, or the thing that the government has put forward is nuance in their position. They've literally put forward every single position to speak to every single community out of every side of their mouth. And as a result, we have no position at all. It confuses Canadians and it confuses our allies. And tonight, I hope that they put up somebody, if it's not the Prime Minister, to give one clear position about where Canada stands. And if we've been asked for some help, or if we've been asked to be a part of this at all, I think Canadians have a right to know. Parliamentarians certainly have a right to know, and we'll debate that in the House tonight.
I did want to also ask you about something that the leader of your party talked about in this context, which is essentially an emergency supply plan given what's happening. And we're going to talk about this a lot tonight on oil prices, something Canadians care a lot about because they're having a dramatic impact on prices at the pump. Interestingly, exactly a week ago, I put the question to the federal energy minister around essentially what does this mean in the Canadian context? And he said almost word for word what Pierre Poilievre is saying, which is like, this makes the case for Canadian supply. What is different?
Well, then why not actually unlock the ability to get Canadian supply to European markets or to Asian markets by approving pipelines or by approving LNG infrastructure? We saw Germany do it in 200 days. So we know that it is absolutely possible to get something up and running in less than 200 days. And it's been more than 200 days, or just about 200 days, since we gave the Prime Minister all of the power that he needs to approve pipelines to the West Coast particularly, and he hasn't done that. So in all fairness, the energy minister is saying all of the right things. It's just that none of the results are happening. There's an opportunity here for Canadians to supply the world with clean, frankly, moral energy to displace that dictator oil that people are relying on. We had that opportunity 4 years ago when the war in Ukraine started, and we certainly have that opportunity now.
I did press the minister on the lack of using C5, that it was approved kind of under emergency, the auspices of emergency, and hasn't been employed since. He said it would look for it to be used in the next few months. On the approvals, though, that you mentioned, you know, LNG, I believe 2 of the big projects, including LNG 2, are on those major projects list. They're awaiting, in the case of LNG 2, a final decision from the proponent there. On the pipeline that you and your party keep saying needs to be approved right now, like which pipeline? There's no pipeline before.
We want a pipeline. Look, we want to see a pipeline to the west, and the thing that's in the way, again, we've had this conversation many times on this show. There's legislation that is in the way. It's C-69. They've said it. Any proponents have said it themselves that that's in the way. The industrial carbon tax, the shipping ban on the west coast. This is a monumental opportunity for Canada to show leadership in the world and to export our oil for good-paying jobs here at home. Again, I've said that we can control what we can control here in Canada, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about tonight.
All of what you just talked about is in that MOU that's supposed to be concluded by April the 1st. It's already been signed.
And yet we've had...
But may I just finish? And on Friday, an agreement was reached with the province of Alberta specifically and Premier Danielle Smith on the impact assessment process to change it to reflect like just one approval process versus varied ones. The Premier at the time was not saying exactly what you're saying. Is she wrong?
We've had a ton of MOUs. We've had the Prime Minister in his spot. We have a major project office that hasn't approved a single pipeline or, frankly, a single new project from start to finish. We can do all these. We are squandering the opportunity as Canadian providers to energy to Europe and Asia, and we want to see that change. We want to see that change, particularly in light of what's happening today.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note, Ms. Lantsman. Thanks for making the time. I appreciate it.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. We're going to wrap it up. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a comment below. Check out this playlist. Check out this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Aaron at Canadian Looney. Ciao for now. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks again for watching. We're out.